the Weekly Show with David J. Maloney.
This week, David chats with Emmy-nominated actress Lee Purcell.
And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome, everyone, to The Weekly Show. I'm your host, David J. Maloney. On tonight's show, we've got Lee Purcell joining us once again. Lee is a two-time Emmy-nominated actress whose roles stretch across the decades and involve some of the biggest and brightest names in show business over the past 40 years. From her breakout role on Adam at 6 a.m. to the cult classic Big Wednesday to her Emmy-nominated roles in Long Road Home and Secret Sins of the Father, she has graced us with some fantastic performances while acting alongside the likes of Michael Douglas, Orson Welles, Nicolas Cage, Dennis Hopper, Chadwick Boseman, and so many more. Back with us again tonight is the wonderful Lee Purcell, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Throughout this interview, there's these things where you've taken kind of unorthodox approaches, industry approaches to getting things, and the term butterfly effect keeps running through my head. Like if this one thing doesn't happen, some of all of these other things don't happen. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? It's almost like the Back to the Future thing, where if some of these just little moments, just this one little thing, if this one modeling, agent didn't see something in you that reminded you of his daughter, maybe this interview isn't happening right now. You know what I mean? It's just
I agree with you. I have actually often thought about that. It was a commercial agent, but if the commercial agent hadn't absolutely persisted and forced me to agree to audition for Adam at 6 a.m., right? Or if I hadn't been signed by that commercial agent, it is like a butterfly effect. It really is. And I think that life is like that. I think everybody's lives are like that.
Oh, big time.
I think everybody's lives are like that. And here's an interesting little side story. So there's a good friend of mine. She's turning 90 in November. And we had a ceremony for her a couple of days ago. I nominated, because I'm in union service, as I have mentioned, and so is she for 45 years. And I partially, actually a lot, got into union service because of her. I so admired her and what she did for actors and saw her do it for years, and then I eventually thought, it's time. I should do this. And so I did. And then years go by and I'm in this committee and that committee and on the board and whatever. And so is she. And, I get to know her, and which was great because I really, I kind of idolized her. And so when I got to this certain committee and I was able to nominate people for this one particular incredible award called the Ralph Morgan Award, which you get for your dedication to union service. And so I nominated her, and of course it was all secret. She didn't know, because God forbid you tell somebody you nominated and they don't get it, right? That would be horrible. So it went on for like many, many months, and I couldn't tell her. And she's so humble, she never thought she would get it anyway. She never even thought about it. And so I nominated her. It was, of course, very enthusiastically, wholeheartedly received. And so the other day we had this beautiful event, beautiful at the union for her, and beautiful food and flowers, and and it was just great. And I made a speech for her, about her. There were three of us that made speeches. And just talked about her and her life, and she's just quite the inspiration. And but when I had been interviewing her, and this comes back to the butterfly effect, when I interviewed her, because I said, I'm going to interview you, and she's like, what? And I said, yeah, because I got to write the speech, and I want to make sure I include everything that you want included, and I have questions I want to ask you. And so I asked her all these various questions and took notes, so I could write my speech, and because I'm also a writer. And so at the end of this, I said to her, and this is going to make me tear up, I'll just tell you in advance. And I said to her, so what is it like to be you? And what advice would you have for people who follow you. And she gave me this incredible answer. She said, everything has been a surprise. Oh, that gets me. And she said, I just put one foot in front of the other and walked through every door that opened. And that was like so emotional, just so emotional and true. And I thought, me too. Yeah. And she nailed it. And so when I gave my speech and I quoted what she said, I mean, everybody cried. Everybody just went, oh my gosh. Because that thing about what she said about everything has been a surprise. And then she explained the whole thing to me about her life, that she never expected this to happen. She never expected that to happen. She never expected to get this role or that role. And she never expected to do union service. And she never expected all these things. And I thought, because she put one foot in front of the other and walked through every door that opened. And that is like a great way to live. Just walk through those doors and see what happens. And that's what she did, and that's what I have done. But I have never been able to verbalize it in the same way that she did. And it was true. It was probably true for a lot of people there, because the room was filled with artists. And, that's kind of what we do. We kind of just jump off, I mean, for me, it's more like I just jumped off cliffs and with no safety net. And I think that's a good way to live.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained. You sit in your little, whatever it is you're in, but you dream of other things. Take a chance, even if you fail. Take a chance.
There's a lot of people who I think everybody has the opportunity for greatness in different ways. But you have to, one, have your eyes open, because a lot of times it's right there and you don't realize it. In other words, you've got a perfectly good written script and you're seated in the plane and you don't realize that Spielberg's right behind you.
Oh, yeah.
And
totally.
You had it and you could have just passed it back and you didn't even know. And that opportunity was there. You just didn't know it. Then there's other times the opportunity is there and he's sitting behind you, but you don't have the courage to do it. And then there's other times where you have the courage, but you don't have the wherewithal, or you don't have. And so all of those things, the planets have to kind of align, and then you still have to take the leap.
Yeah, you do.
And so you still have to, the window is, all these windows open, but you have to spot them and you have to be willing to jump through them, and then you have to do the work. That's the other thing. You got to do the work.
Yeah, you got to do the work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. For Secret Sins of the Father, you acted alongside another set of Hollywood heavyweights in Bo and Lloyd Bridges. How did you first become attached to that film, and what made you interested in that role?
I can't quite remember, but I remember my agent at the time. He said, "Do you want to do this role?" And I said, "Let me read it." Because people are always asking me doing this role. And I'm like, well, can I read it? And I said, let me read it. And so he sent it to me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is a great role. This is a really wonderful role. And it's very different because like 2 years before I had done Long Road Home. And so now I was looking something of more of like, a contemporary, more average woman, not a migrant farm worker, not a character role. And so and this was that, but she was a woman who suffered a terrible betrayal from her husband. And I thought, yeah, I would like to do that. And so he went back to them and he said, yeah, she would. And they were like, okay, well, we're considering it, or we got to cast this other role first, or whatever. Right. So it was this kind of weird waiting period. And meanwhile, I was getting other roles
Other opportunities.
opportunities, right? But it's still, this role was like kind of in my head. And I would call him up and go, have they offered it yet? And he's like, not yet. He said, and I said, well, I'm just not going to turn down things. And then they offer it to me. And then what happens? And I said, you just got to call them up and you got to tell them the truth, that I've been offered this other role and I'm going to take it unless they offer me this role today. And he said, all right. So he did. And they went, no, we want her. And he said, well, you can't keep like stringing her along like this because she's got other opportunities. And they said, no, fine, we'll offer it today. Fine. And so that's how that happened. And then, and it was an interesting role. It was a woman whose heart is, gets broken by her husband's betrayal with another woman. And that was a very rich role to play, very rich. And Bo, Bo directed it, Bo Bridges, and then he had his whole family in it, everybody except for Jeff. But there must have been 10 or 11 Bridges in that film. I mean, his father played, his father, my father-in-law. His mother played his mother, my mother-in-law. He had cousins, and his sister was in it, and he had nieces and nephews and cousins, and and it was so much fun to be surrounded by the Bridges tribe. And I said to Lloyd one day, could you just adopt me? Because I would love to be a family member. He said, well, yeah, okay. You're an unofficial Bridges. And they're just the best people on earth, just the best people on earth, all of them. And I had already known Jeff for a long time. I didn't know Bo until, we met and he played my husband who betrayed me and he directed it. And again, I'll always be grateful to Bo because, hey, I got another Emmy nomination and it was a great role. And it was a contemporary role, and it was a role that I really hadn't played that role before. I hadn't played the woman who gets betrayed. Not that I recall, I can't remember. But that was, it was great. It was a very meaty kind of role. Not a tremendous amount of dialogue, but the dialogue that there was impeccable.
Do you feel like you were creating something special with your performance? I mean, did you feel this was a role that might get you another nomination at the time, or was it just, you were just doing what you do because that's what you do? Or did you, because sometimes I've spoken with other people in the industry and sometimes they just kind of have a feeling that what they're doing is just really, really special. You know what I mean? I did and I didn't. Long Road Home I did, because I had fought so hard and I had done it so thoroughly and researched it so much and put my heart and soul into it. And with Secret Sins of the Father, it wasn't like that, but it was like, this is a role I haven't played. And these are emotions that I have, that I can tap into because I have experienced that type of betrayal, but I hadn't played it on screen or stage. And I just basically did what my friend did. I put one foot in front of the other and just did the role, day by day by day, and lived it, breathed it. And then when I got the second nomination, I was surprised, but it was another great gift. It was another wonderful gift. And really, I owe a lot of that to Bo, because he gave me tremendous freedom to basically do what I want. He reined me in when it was too much, and he encouraged me when it was too little. But he gave me a tremendous creative freedom. And every time I see him and go, I got my second Emmy nomination because of you. And we laugh about it. And so, I didn't expect it, but I was hoping for it. We started off the interview talking about family and whether or not the military family was supportive of these 13-year-old ambitions that you had, and that they weren't necessarily. At what point did that change? At what point in the career did suddenly the validation come?
Never.
Jeez.
It's okay. See, my father had died, and my mother had remarried, and both of my father and my stepfather were military men, and every time I would see them, I would get the question, "When are you coming home?" I was 40. It's okay. It honestly, honestly, I don't care because I was the 13-year-old that decided what I was going to do. I'd already been doing it, and I remember my mother said to me one day after I left and I was a professional actress, and she said, we just didn't know that you were going to do that. I said, how could you not know? I've been doing it since I was 5. You drove me to Neiman Marcus. I was 3. I couldn't drive. You drove me to work. You drove me to the studio when I was 8, to do some performance in in this regional show. And I mean, you saw me on stage. You saw me when I was 13 and I was performing all over that part of the country. How could you not know? And she said, we just thought it was a hobby. And I thought, okay, I understand. Their dreams were different from mine, and their goals were different from mine. I don't think it's important that other people agree with you about your life. It's your life. As long as you are doing things that are positive for yourself and for those around you, it's your life. And you need to do what you want your life to be. You need to create it as to what you want it to be. And hey, if you want to be a homemaker in a small town and that is your dream and you want to have a whole bunch of kids, more power to you. I think that's great because that's your dream. I think that there are certain things like I know, I've known since I was a child, certain things that I know that I need, I know I need the outdoors. I know I need, but strangely enough, I need to be in a city. And, I know these things. And I know that I was in the wrong place for me, not for other people. It was the right place for other people. And it would have been, I guess, nice. Maybe it wouldn't have been nice if they would have been supportive. Maybe it wouldn't have been nice if they had given me money. Maybe that wouldn't have worked at all.
In a different way, might have impacted, comfort in a different way. Sometimes you have to have a little bit of that discomfort to fuel it, right?
I think you do. I think you should not get too comfortable because if you do, that's dangerous. It's why I'm opposed to retirement for everybody. I don't believe in retirement. I don't. And I've just seen it time and time again. People retire and then they go downhill and then they die. And so when people say they're retiring, I'm like, are you sure? And like I have a family member, he recently retired. And I know him very, very well. He's like my brother. And although I don't have a brother, but he's like my brother. And I said to him, are you sure? And he was like, oh yeah, it's going to be great. I can play golf. I can do this and I can do that. That lasted less than 6 months. Mm. And he called me up and he said, this retirement stuff sucks. I said, I told you so. So he's gone back to work, but on his terms. So I think you just need to know what your dream is, or if you don't, look at a lot of different things. Explore a lot, because not everybody's lucky like me. They didn't just, have it just occur to them. It's just like, oh, you're an actress, you're this, you're that. They didn't, and I had to work really hard for it, but they didn't have the knowledge and the out of the box thinking, because there was no way I should have done what I did. There was no way. I wasn't raised to do that. I had no entertainment industry connections. I knew no one. And I was just this little girl in the middle of nowhere. And it was just, all I could think about was performing. It was just all I could think about. And there was no reason, no rhyme, no reason. Other people, they're born into it, lucky them, and they have families that, do it. And so they just kind of go into the family business. And, and that would have been nice. But I think no matter where you are, no matter what you do, no matter what kind of family you're in, whether, they're supportive or they're kind or they're not, have a dream. If you don't have a dream, explore dreams and figure out what your dream is, because you're going to find one. If you look hard enough, you're going to find a dream. And I think that's what keeps people going. And you know what? I got to go because I have a union meeting. Oh, and we're going to talk about the strike. So,
well, fun. Because I was the last thing I was going to ask you about was Hollywood radio players. I'll ask you real quick then. Where can our audience go to catch the performances or follow those releases?
Okay, Hollywood Radio Players, which is my current dream.
Yes,
and that I'm following and created with some other people, and I produce it with my partner Michael Carnegie, my producer and partner. And I think I said earlier, we do reenactments of classic radio plays, and we have an awful lot of fun doing it. And it is radio you can see because you see us. It's unusual. It's different. We created this medium, and so you hear us and you see us. And you can go to HollywoodRadioPlayers.com. That's our website. And then there's a menu there of all of our shows. You just click on the show you want to see. That takes you to our YouTube channel, to that particular show. And we have 10 shows. On Friday, we'll have 10 because the 10th is being posted. I directed it. And it's a very funny comedy called The Bickersons. It's a short piece. Some of our pieces are very long. This one's short. Very funny story about this couple named the Bickersons. And it was very popular. It ran from 1946 all the way into the 60s. And I hope you like it. I really enjoyed directing it. And I have a little tiny part in it. And it's really a fun piece. And then we have everything. We have scary things. The Hitchhiker is very, very scary. And we have War of the Worlds, which is our big accomplishment. I directed that one, and it's up to 16,000 views now. We're quite excited about that. And we're just going to keep going. We're just going to keep doing it and expanding it and growing it. And also there's going to be other things that are going to come out of it. Can't say what right now. And so go on there. We do this to benefit the Motion Picture and Television Fund, which is our industry charity. And it got hit pretty hard in the pandemic. A lot of people needed help. And now that there's going to be 2 unions on strike, we're going to need a lot of help. The Motion Picture and Television Fund is. You can see the shows for free. But if you can donate anything, there's a link where to donate. Just click on it and it'll take you to the link. I mean, anything is useful. Don't think you've got to donate masses of money. You don't. Just anything that your heart tells you can donate, and your pocket tells you can donate. So please do go see Hollywood Radio Players. We're quite proud of it. It's very unusual. There's nothing like it, and I can guarantee that. And we are constantly learning and growing and improving. So stick with us because it's just going to get better and better. And thank you so much for having me on the show. It was great fun. Really appreciate it. And I'm now going to go to my union meeting, and I'm going to hear about strike.
Lee, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, Lee Purcell.
Thank you guys so much.
That's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thanks to actress Lee Purcell for joining us once again. Stay safe, everyone.